Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Subplot of Course, a podcast discussing a new science fiction literary work every month by casual fans just like you. I'm Stavros, and with me is someone who always fails the Voight-Comp empathy test when it comes to giving students exams, Charlie. Say hi, Charlie.
I mean, that's pretty much all situations, and
it's true. And also with me is Vincent, a doctor who is personally studying the effects of not owning any real or artificial animals. Say hi.
But I do dream of electric electrons.
That's good. That's an improvement. And finally, we're also joined by John, who attempted to get into the Android construction business, but went into rocket science because it was way easier.
Honestly, hello. I wish I got into the Android business. Big mistake.
Wait, you're making a lot of money.
Can't we just discuss this entire session that Vince dreams of subatomic particles?
I'm sure we can work that into the topics, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Or yes. Blade Runner, if you watch movies in the 80s. Written by Philip K. Dick and published in 1968. And of course, you should be prepared for spoilers. So going over the plot, we're going to be focusing on the novel instead of the Harrison Ford film, although it's going to be hard not to compare them at some point. I fully expect that to happen.
Yay!
But the plot covers exactly one waking day of Rick Deckard, a bounty hunter working for the post-apocalyptic future version of the San Francisco PD. He gets tasked with the retirement, I'm doing air quotes, you can't see it, but retirement or killing of several escaped androids from Mars. Along with tracking down these errant androids, Deckard has to handle the relationship with his depressed wife, his obsession with having a real animal to take care of in a world where many species are extinct, and a very weird relationship with an advanced android from the same manufacturer that has built the androids he is out to retire. So a lot of stuff happening in this book. So first topic, I need to get this out of the way. Deckard puts on a leather codpiece to protect him from...
No, it's a lead codpiece, not a leather one.
I know, yeah. I'm kind of glad it wasn't a leather one, because I wouldn't do much.
Leather would make no impact whatsoever. His children would all be very special in this world.
And in our pre-production meeting, we all brought this up.
It's interesting because it's on like page 1. It might even be in paragraph 1 of this book. So they drop it, but they don't tell you exactly why. It becomes obvious like within seconds.
A page.
Yeah.
So the first you're just like, what is he doing? And you're like, oh. But you just have to this image of this guy just like strapping on his codpiece to go outside, you know.
Like I think of it as a Wild Wild West kind of thing where you put on your gun belt, only they put on their lead codpieces. And then Superman cannot look at their nuts when they do their jobs.
That's right. Maybe they're worried about their animals being able to see their junk or something. I'm not sure.
Super animals.
Got to protect your ability to be your fertility. You know, you got to protect it from the radiation.
Your ability to be not special.
Yeah.
Cue the South Park "Protect My Ball" song.
Yes, that does happen.
Though it's slightly sexist because women don't get one for their junk.
No woman really gets dressed to go outside in the book.
What?
I'm like, that's kind of true. Are there women besides like the two that just kind of hang out with him?
Well, okay, so Luba is the opera singer, and she's definitely dressed because she sings at the opera. But I guess your point is that the only women are really androids, the ones that go outside, because his wife stays indoors all the time.
Right. So the book does not follow any women getting dressed, for better or worse. I'm so glad we're talking about this topic, by the way.
Awesome. Okay.
Yay! This is some highbrow shit right here.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is, in this novel, there's, a lot of animals are extinct. So pretty much everyone has their either real or fake animal that they take care of. And in Deckard's case, he has a fake sheep because his real one died, because animals die sometimes. And how'd you guys feel about this? This is like a realistic thing that happens. All the animals die, and everyone just kind of is at each other's throats to get super cool animals that they can just put on roofs and hopefully not have their animal thrown off said roof.
I thought it was like a major social ticket. It's basically like, you don't have an animal, you could be an android. Let me prove to everyone that I care, and the best way of proving that I care is by having a pet, which is very interesting because not a lot of people in modern day society have pets. So I guess maybe I'm one of the few androids in real life because I don't have a pet, unfortunately. Stavros, you are more than human.
I thought we've been over this. Charlie's the one that failed the Voight-Comp test.
That's true. He also has no pets, so he's an android just like me and John. John's also an android.
If only. No, I think it was interesting because owning an animal of any kind, and the way the book develops it, it's almost any animal of any significance whatsoever. So it's like a spider counts.
Yeah, I was about to say, they get super excited. They're like, oh my god, I found a spider! Like,
It is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and frogs count like double or triple, and owls count like gazillion points because the more extinct they are, the more awesome they are. So it's not like, I own a huge horse or I own an elephant. It's like, whatever, everyone's got an elephant. But an owl, oh man, you'd be the bee's knees.
They're just like, owls died first, therefore most expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have like almanacs and they keep track of the price, the current. I don't know why they have almanacs. Clearly, they have the technology to leave the Earth, so one would hope they had
going to space
marketplaces, but apparently
it's
not.
Magic the Gathering, only in the future. They have to have a price list for every single collectible card or animal, and it's a trading game. Because he wanted to trade for like the baby horse that his neighbor had.
That's the big deal in this book. It's like super underpopulation is like a big deal, whereas in the movie it is overpopulation, oddly.
Yeah, they went a total different. I mean, so in the book, right? So there's one of the main characters in the book lives in an entire building. What would be like a housing development building by himself, ostensibly by himself.
Yeah,
and they basically there's all this infrastructure that is way overbuilt for the amount of people who are essentially still living on Earth.
Isn't it basically like the entire San Francisco Peninsula? It's like a mega city or something like that that's just been abandoned. So this guy owns he basically lives in a high rise and never hears another person there.
He could probably walk into the Ritz-Carlton and be like, "This is my building," and just takes one room. And he's like, and he gets super excited when someone else moves in. He's like, "Oh, I hear a TV. There's somebody here!" And then he brings them a pat of margarine to be like, "Hey, I'm your neighbor."
Isn't it a point to where like San Francisco has like a hotel because that's all you really need?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
interesting.
Deckard goes to hang out and have crazy android sex later, but we'll get to that.
So I'm going to assume that the author ostensibly he foretold the flight of people from northern industrial cities to the south, to the Sunshine States through the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, essentially. The Detroits, the Buffaloes, all those northeastern towns that have way too much infrastructure for what was once a large city. I live in Cincinnati. It's somewhat similar, somewhat analogous.
I think it's more like they fled from the the entire world in general and just went to space apparently.
Oh yeah, it's like on a big scale.
Going to space.
Yes, that's the solution to all mankind's problems in sci-fi books. Go to space.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so let's go on to a separate topic here. So, the book goes into a lot of detail on how empathy is supposedly a human concept, something that the androids can't experience. It's even the most super advanced androids, they kind of fake it really well, but they can't really express it really. And probably the book title itself, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, tries to make something of that they can't dream or do a human thing.
I was going to say that's the interesting thing where it's like all they talk about really is how empathy is the big human thing, but it hints that like you should be thinking about this because androids can clearly dream and like want a better life and move on for other things. So it's kind of giving you an alternate. Well, maybe they are more human than we think they are, even though the empathy part isn't working out quite as good as it should.
Yeah, I mean, I think Philip K. Dick definitely makes a very clear demarcation that it's very difficult for the androids to have any sort of empathy because they torture spiders and stuff like that, the ones that are androids. But they do still have very human characteristics in that they're basically, in the book, they make androids because they need slave labor on Mars and on other colony-type planets. And the androids are like, I don't want to be a slave anymore. I want to be human. I want to have my own life. So the androids get together. They escape by killing a few human beings, I believe, and then come to Earth to be human. And like one of them's an opera singer. Some of them are a little bit more psychopathic and they want to kill some humans. But a few of them like really seem very human. I think that Rick Deckard like actually is convinced develops his first sense of empathy for androids when he meets that Lou Beluft, the opera singer, and says, "Wow, she is totally not trying to kill anyone. She's totally all she wants to do is sing. Like, I mean, I have no problem with that, and she sings really, really amazingly well, and it was very interesting just to see how they tried to deal with empathy. And the androids even said, how do I know that there is empathy? I've never experienced this. Prove to me that there is this empathy thing, because to me it just sounds like this crock of made up stuff to give you guys an excuse to kill us, because we didn't do anything wrong. You enslaved us. It's not our fault. It was very interesting.
Yeah, and then they even have the empathy boxes, which is almost like an analogy for religion, where it's like, oh, well, we don't see it, so like, why should we even think it's anything more than an excuse for you guys to be jerks and exclusionary or whatever?
So there's actually a lot of different things happening on the empathy topic here. It's a lot to squeeze into one topic. But on the one sense, there's the Mercer religion, which involves the empathy box, like you said, which basically forces you into experiencing empathy on a planet where there basically aren't a lot of people, so it forces you to have a collective empathetic experience. And the androids, who you kind of get the sense through the book that they control the media through the Buster Friendly TV and radio personality. There's that war going on where the androids attempt to discredit empathy. So there's that kind of meta conflict going on there. But on the same page, there's also Deckard, who is told, like, hey, if you're empathetic towards androids, you suck and you can't do your job. And he starts feeling empathy for them towards the end of the book, and therefore is kind of thrown off his like pro-human. You could call it a pro-human stance.
So would you say the robots are trying to discredit? To take a step back, so Mercerism, right, is the religion that sort of popularizes the empathy divide and how it's really important for humanity. But that's only because it wasn't before that, right? They had large war, and presumably before that, they had lost a connection to empathy. Wink to the audience, he wrote this book in 1968. So he obviously thought that there was a time before that. And then they got Mercerism. So since the androids seem to be trying to subvert the concept of empathy as a dividing line for humanity, or as a way forward for humanity, does that mean that they want a return to no distinction between androids, or that they're anti-empathy, empathy as a concept?
It could be that they're. Go ahead, Vincent.
No, I mean, you can go ahead, Stavros, but my quick point is, I don't think they're anti-empathy. I think they're more like pro-survival. Like, they want to live, and they already have like a 4-year lifespan. And I think in the book it's because of biological, like genetic, like problems. In the movie, it's like they planned the obsolescence or something like that. But I think they just want to survive, and they don't really care about the empathy, except for the fact that empathy is the reason why they can't survive, because humans say you have to have it.
Yeah, I would even go as far to say that if there is a theme here, it's that, like, what is empathy and what is feeling? Because you've got humans having both fake and real animals, and working that empathy in order to encourage this ownership of these animals, and plus and Deckard himself feeling something for the opera singer and for the android that he sleeps with and stuff like that. I feel like he's constantly going over this line, like, am I not allowed to feel empathy for things that clearly look and act human? So I feel like the author might be going for like a everything is wrong type angle with something like this.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing I was going to ask if you guys picked up on it, which is that so you'd mentioned they got real animals and not real. So if empathy is truly a dividing line for human, if that's the concept behind Mercerism, then like they have the Penfield mood organ, which, as far as I can tell, allows them to dial almost extensively any emotion that they want. So could they just have synthetic empathy as well?
Yeah, I think that totally fits into that theme. Like, what is real? Like,
yeah,
is empathy real?
I think that's part of the whole end of the book where, spoilers, his android lover kills his goat, and then he finds a toad, which is supposedly like the best animal he can find, but it turns out to be synthetic. But he's kind of all right with that in the end.
Yeah, I mean, John, you make a really interesting point. Like, that Penfield mood organ is a very interesting. Like, I feel like every sci-fi book has to have its interesting take on how the future would work. And in this one, it's kind of like, hey, you can use a machine to make you feel something. So they made it really interesting in the beginning, where it's like, I hate my job, but let me dial this number, which gives me unending optimism about my job. And I feel like a lot of people could use that type of machine. It's like, oh God, Monday's gonna suck. I really don't want to go to work, but hey, let me take 2 ibuprofen, and oh man, my job's gonna be awesome on Monday. I can't wait to go, and it's gonna be the best. Whether or not it dials in like true empathy, it would be interesting because I don't know. I don't know. Androids presumably could not dial in, but in this book they seem to be relatively biological. Like, they have all the iris and the blush tests, and they seem completely biologically functional. It's kind of like Data says it's like, oh yeah, I am completely capable of reproduction, even if I don't necessarily make children. It's like Rick apparently goes and loves this Rachel girl and wants to try and procreate with her. But I don't know if she's empathetic.
From the human's perspective, it's not explicit, but almost everything in their world can be synthetically produced because they can produce androids to replace labor and even to replace them for relationships. Because Deckard wants to have a relationship in the movie explicitly, in the book sort of implicitly with the androids. But even like their mood and potentially their empathy can be synthetic. So what cannot be replaced by something synthetic in their world?
It's almost like that's kind of the thing where the androids try to disprove the Mercerism, where it's like even like empathy itself is manufactured in a sense.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why the book basically says the only thing that can't be manufactured is that empathy thing. And even then it's like shades of gray. Like the androids can mimic empathy to a certain extent. It's like, okay, we serve you a live animal, like we serve you deer for dinner, and you're supposed to be like, oh, vomit, like you can't. The idea of killing an animal is worse, and like the robots like know that's the right answer, so they try and answer that way, and like they're so good at it that you need this like eye dilation blush test and this like microsecond hesitation kind of response test to be able to say, oh no, actually you're a robot, you're slightly too slow on the you don't want to eat dog for dinner question, which means that they just keep getting infinitely closer to actually being quote unquote empathetic. And at that point it's like, do you need to truly feel that dog's repulsive, or is it like at some point are you just going through the answers? Also, and does that make you human?
Why does Rosencorp want to make like unidentifiably fake people?
I was right about to bring that up because you get the sense that the cops and the Rosencorp are at odds. Like no one, the corp wants to make as realistic as possible androids, and the cops are constantly trying to find like their own like really crappy ways to try and identify them. And you feel I almost kind of want to say like the corporation's got to be run by androids at this point. Like why
Yeah. It is very interesting. The justification to answer Charlie is that he says people want them to be real, so if it increases our sales by making them more real, we will make them more real. It's not a super convincing argument because, for slave labor on the moon, like, or on Mars, you could probably have a full-on C-3PO, like, shiny tin box walking around hoeing the Earth. But it's to a certain point where, like, you want, like, android sex, or you want, like, companionship and stuff like that, then maybe you do want an android that is very human. And it's not a great idea because, I mean, they only live for 4 years, so why would you shell out, like, a whole ton of shekels for a 4-year shelf life relationship? It's like, even a dog lives only 10 years, and you get super broken up when they die, like, 10 years later, or 12 years later. If you had to invest in something that dies every 4 years, I don't know if I could get emotionally invested in, a best friend who died every 4 years. Oh, let me go try and make another best friend, or a wife who dies in 4 years. Oh, God, that would freak me out. That'd be the worst.
My sister used to get pet rats and like absolutely love them, and they last like 2 years. So every 2 years it was like just like falling apart.
I mean, I feel like I wouldn't be human after like maybe like 12 years. It'd be like I went through 3 best friends and they just died out of the blue. Like I'd be like insane. I'd be like, time for suicide. This is the worst.
I think it's you talk about the populationless Earth. I mean, it could be this corporation is just fulfilling the need of a species that is basically dying out, and people do want companionship. They don't want space slaves. They want more people, probably.
Also, did anyone else notice that Vince's future spends money in shekels?
Yep. I specifically went there because I was like, oh, what's the most interesting currency I come up with off the top of my head in 0.5 milliseconds? Shekels. That's the best shekel.
Oh man! All right, so let's move on to basically my favorite part of the book was when Deckard is picking up the opera singer, and she calls the cops.
Yeah.
And then the fake cops come and pick him up. And at one point, he's getting driven with, in the patrol car back to the station. And the author really fucks with you. And he's like, he hasn't taken the test personally, at least not in a long time. And they
just talked about fake memories and all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So you're thinking like, wow, like is Deckard an android? And it had me going all the way up until he got to the inspector guy's office, Garland's office.
Though I do like how they're even like he just killed an android in his car, and they're just like, there's like just a dead guy that he murdered in the car, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, so it really had me going. It's like, wow, this guy just killed a guy in his car, and you're like, well, Deckard's an android. I'm dead.
Well, I actually thought I thought two things. So one, they could have taken it even further by saying, because if the androids ran the police station, in the end, like one of the androids comes down and says, "Yup, the dead body was an android." What if they said, "Nope, that one was a human"? Like that would have totally screwed over like Rick. Because I mean, if they controlled everything, why wouldn't the lab results come back? To further implicate him. Yeah. But the reason why, one of the kind of major reasons why I was pretty sure he was human was the fact that he actually had a wife. In the movie, he has no partner. So the idea of him being an android is very, very kind of plausible.
Yeah, plausible.
But you would have to have two androids, one android to reinforce the husband, Rick Deckard, to be like, oh, okay, he has a wife, because in the book and in the movie, it's like, oh, we give them fake memories, and then they think they're human. But who gets a wife, like, of I don't know how many years, to be like, oh, well, I'm an android, let's further reinforce it with a partner who would really screw over with his mind. I was like, he's probably pretty human.
Also, why are all of Deckard's family photos from, 1903 in the movie?
I believe the answer is dramatic effect.
No, actually, in the movie, they're trying to suggest that he is an android, whereas in the book, it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know why most of my contributions this time is just pointing out random stuff.
Shekels!
Laser
Point out the shekels.
The one thing, it's like, why are all the androids even though nobody's figured it out, they'll just turn to Deckard and be like, dang it, I'm an android. And it's like, why'd you just tell him that? You were perfectly willing to just, murder everybody and get away, and you just nope, I'm just gonna let him know and feel bad about it.
I agree with you, Charles. I think, there's, I don't know if this is on purpose. He kind of explained it, but not to my satisfaction.
Well, I understand
they're very docile.
When they're caught. I understand you're caught, I'm just gonna, no fight or flight type thing. But just he's in the office with the other android guy, and the other android guy's like, yep, he's gonna find out we're both androids, and I'm an android, and I just told you that non-android guy, and then he's gonna kill you. It's like, why'd you just tell him that? Aren't you gonna have your laser firefight and kill everybody and claim everyone else is androids? Come on.
I feel like this is the James Bond syndrome, where the villain just goes well, I'm the bad guy. I'm going to explain to you my nefarious plan.
I also love how their empathy's so bad that he can just pretend to be special, and they're just like, oh yeah, you're totally the special guy. And then he just opens the door and gets shot. Oh.
Yep.
Alright, on to wrap up. That was my story.
Thanks, Charlie. We appreciate you.
Thanks. Don't worry, I will expire in 2 years anyway.
Wow. Confirmed that he's a replicant.
I feel like Charlie wanted participation credit, so he raised his hand and made his comment in class, and Stavros checked him off. He's like, okay, you got an A for the semester. Don't worry about it.
Yay! Back to
paychecks in the mail, Charlie.
In the corner.
You're covered.
All right, so let's go to final thoughts. So, for me, I really like this book a lot. It surprised me kind of, because I just read Man in the High Castle recently, and I freaking hated that book. So I thought this book did a great job, especially considering when it was written. It got me going a lot with the universe building. Even the animal economy was really cool. The whole Deckard possibly as an android thing really got me going. So I really like this one a lot. Vincent, what did you think of this?
I actually think that out of all the books you read for all the podcasts so far, this is my favorite book out of all of them. For many of the reasons that Star Wars kind of points out is that it brings into a lot of philosophical issues into a sci-fi book. So it's got slavery of androids who want to be human and what it means to be human, along with empathy, on top of hover cars, laser guns, technology,
tubes,
artificial animals, isolation and loneliness. It brings together so many themes that are all very interesting in and of themselves, without making it seem like it's oh, we're just trying to fit in a bunch of random stuff. And I feel like a good metric of how good a book is how scrambly we are during the podcast. We're like, oh my God, there's this topic and there's that topic and there's this topic and there's that topic and that. And we didn't have enough time. There's not enough time to discuss this book. Whereas with other books, we're kind of like, whatever, like the book was okay. Oh yeah, just kill bugs all the time and that's what it is. Like this book is incredibly complex, incredibly good as a sci-fi book. I would definitely highly recommend this book. And the movie's pretty good as well, but the book is just like, it's a different story. The book is different from the movie. They're basically like, if you enjoyed the book, the movie's just like version 2 with a different ending and different take on things. I highly recommend it.
All right. How about you, John? Would you own a laser tube?
I
wouldn't?
Straight out of 1968.
I went on the laser tube diffractor device just in case.
I like the technology. They had great technology points. He painted a really rich picture of society. I totally agree with Vince that the philosophical plot points between Mercerism and empathy and the divide. Deckard's there was a point in there where it was almost like a mystery novel. Is he an Andy or not? There was so many good things in the book, and the movie also just stands on its own. I just thought it was really worth the read.
But if you watch a movie, watch the final cut. Don't watch the other two because they were edited so heavily you don't get the actual final meaning.
I thought director's cut was still.
Director's cut was
basically
okay.
is director's cut.
Director's cut was okay, but final's cut was supposed to do the unicorn symbolism a little bit better.
Okay.
If you wait another 2 years, there will be a no-cut version, which will be just all of the cuts together put in one long continuous stream of movie.
And then you get the cut version, which is all the cut stuff put together in their own standalone movie.
Ooh.
Okay, Charlie, what do you think? Your final thoughts?
Book is good. Movie's good. Unless you were triggered by goat murder, you should get into this.
Everyone's triggered by goat murder, though.
Oh.
I think that's the point, right?
The point of the book was goat murder.
It was very sad.
Actually, the spider torture got me the most, actually.
Yes.
I just never do that.
And if your eyes didn't dilate when the spider got tortured, I got some news for you, buddy.
Laser tube!
Laser for you.
Of course, we already know Charlie's android, which is like, he didn't blink. He's like, whatever, spider tortures, whatever. But the goat, I know the answer to that question. That was bad.
Okay, well, I think that's all the time we have. So go into our outro here. If you have feedback or suggestions on books we should read and discuss, you can reach us at subplotofcoursepodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at subplotpodcast. And for next month's episode, we're going to be talking about Logan's Run, classic novel. William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson authored that one.
Also, very popular video game where Wolverine runs on your iPhone and you tap the screen to make him jump over things. Logan runs.
Not at all. Not a thing. Not what we're reading.
Damn it.
Don't be confused.
I got a high score on that game.
Trademark infringement. Marvel, please do not.
No, it's an idea. They can make tons of money on it. I'll totally give it to you for free.
And with that, goodbye.